so much for joining us on Life Today. I'm Betty Robison, and this is James.
And I'm holding a beautiful CD. Beautiful girl, Carolyn Goad Pankalla. The Goad family's been here, and they have been all over the country singing. And I mean, they're just a tremendous blessing. And you talk about a family that has been through shock effect, and through those moments in one's life or family where you think we couldn't possibly endure it, or how could we ever survive it and live beyond it. This has been like a recurring event in so many ways to the Goad family, and even a recent experience that Carolyn's going to tell us about. And the title of the CD, Broken and Beautiful, and God really does use broken vessels. So I want you to welcome Carolyn to Life Today. Would you? We're glad to see you.
You did well.
Glad to have you here. Many people who listen to the family, and I've heard you over the years, I listen to you, they're aware of some of the story, but I think we've got viewers around the world who are really going to probably find it very difficult to imagine that a family of singers could be impacted in such devastating ways. And I want you just, if you would, to sort of let our viewers know a little bit about the Goad experience.
Well, I come from an incredible family, as you well know. There's 6 brothers and sisters. I'm the youngest of 7. I say they had to save the best to last. You know, they worked out all the kinks, and here I came. Had an incredible father. He was a minister. You know that story. Him being raised on the street, was homeless, and one man walked across the street and asked him to come to church. Changed our whole family. Isn't that great? And he was a minister and was out telling people about Christ, but he had stopped traveling with us so much because everybody said you can't afford 7 kids on a pastor's salary, and they were probably right. But one night we were going to be singing about 3 hours away, and we said, Mom and Dad, will you please come with us? And so they said, we're coming. And that night, my brother stood on stage and told how God had changed his life. He had been living a double life for a little bit, and how he had rededicated his life. And my mom stood up. She was a shy woman, and she stood, and I still remember I was 6 years old, and I can hear her hand touching the bench because she was so nervous to talk. And she said, I am committed tonight to do more for Christ than I've ever done before. Not knowing that 3 hours later we'd be on our way home. And my brother always did all the driving. But out of respect, my daddy kept saying, please let me drive, please let me drive. And my brother finally said, okay. We were 20 miles from our house. So we let him take the wheel, and he said that he had just put his head back to go to sleep, and he felt the van jerk really hard to the left. And when he did, he looked up, and my dad's hands were straight up in the air. His head was back, his eyes were shut, and so he tried to grab the wheel to get it back, and when he did, it must have hit something else, and it went to the right and hit the berm and began to flip 3.5 times on the interstate. Well, in that accident, my mom, my brother was screaming, get everybody out of the van, get everybody out of the van, because they thought it was going to blow up. And what they thought to be a piece of equipment about 50 yards away, my mom had been thrown from the van and was taken home to be with Jesus instantly. And I was thrown from that van also, and slid on the road, and not to be gory or nothing, but just severe brain trauma. And they took me to one hospital and said, there's nothing we can do for her here. So they whipped me to another hospital, and they said, we're just going to have to see in the morning what happens. And I'm so thankful, you all, that I had a family who wasn't ashamed or too proud in the middle of a hospital to fall down on their knees and ask the King of Kings to come in and touch my body and to heal me. And I had the quickest recovery in that hospital for severe brain trauma. Now, my brothers would say that's probably what's wrong with me today, but...
Don't you thank God for that miracle? Your loss is terrible.
Good.
When you did recover, mother's gone. You've got a whole new process. Your dad, what caused him to throw his head back?
You know, he had a brain aneurysm, and we didn't know it. And, you know, it sort of exploded that night, and it just caused him to pass out. And, you know, you can't explain it, you know.
Now, did the older children, and you were injured and you're very young, but did the older children spend an awful lot of time asking why? And did your dad? I mean, how did it impact you as a family right then?
Well, our mom was our greatest cheerleader. I mean, she was the glue of our household. Our dad was a strong military man, and our mom was just that loving arm that just loved us kids told us every day, you're ambassadors of Christ. You're going to do something great for God. I mean, she was our cheerleader, that when the rest of the world was saying, oh, you know, you talk too much, she's saying, no, God's given you a gift, we just got to teach you when to use it, you know. But she was everything to us, you know, and life had to change, because all of a sudden you're looking at that piece of paper that had this beautiful family, and it's blank. It's gone. That light is gone. The light, it's dark, and you know, it's lonely. You've got to put life all back together again, and it was hard.
What a awful tragedy, losing your mom and then your dad having the medical problems he had, which caused the accident. But what did you do after that? I mean, as a family?
Well, you know, I think Satan thought he had us. So instead of us getting down, we got back up with a fire like we had never had, because we were going to tell about the grace of God, because we weren't at the mercy of a person with a theory. We had the experience.
That's great.
We knew the peace that passeth all understanding, because it had come into our lives. So 7, we were out telling people about Jesus, you know, and putting life back together. It was not easy. It knitted us, it bonded us together. And then 7 years later, got a phone call from my dad that night. And my dad, because of the accident and they had taken a portion of his brain, could not handle loud music. And that night he had this minister blaring and praise and worship. It was so loud, and he was so full of joy. I mean, I had to say, Daddy, you've got to turn it down. I can't hear you. And I'm looking at my sister like, what's going on with Dad? And he said to me, he goes, I just want to tell you kids how much I love you. And he said, how proud I am of you, but if I have ever done anything to hurt you, I just hope you know that please forgive me. And I was able to tell my daddy that night, Daddy, you've been a wonderful dad. You know, you have 7 kids who all love Jesus. What are you worried about, you know? And I handed the phone to my sister. And once again, not knowing that we'd get a phone call about 4 hours later, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and them saying, your daddy's house is on fire. And we thought it was a prank. You know, we've been through enough here. We're out serving God. This can't be us. And we drove out there, and sure enough, I mean, you turn the corner a mile away and you see the house ablaze. And my daddy had a wood-burning stove in his house, and the old-fashioned way that you clean the flue is you got it so hot that it just cleaned the flue out. But my dad was bringing home wood from his work that had glue on it. And so it made like a bomb, and it just exploded. I mean, just exploded. So my daddy was taken home to be with Jesus that night through smoke inhalation. And yeah, once again, you know, you're hit with, God, what do we do? He sets before you life or death. He said, choose life. It's set before us bitterness or get better. And I know where bitterness leads. Bitterness leads, you know, to hate, you know, unforgiveness, unhealthiness, misery, depression. Why would I choose that? Instead, we chose, God, we don't understand, but we're going to trust you, that you're going to be with that all things work together for good to them that love God. I mean, you have to stand on his word, because you can't stand on anything else. You
know, every time your family's been with us, and as you were singing, I always saw the grace of God, because only his enabling grace can carry you through that kind of pressure. And you've just gone through another heartache. This just not too many months back. Tell our viewers what came your way.
Well, you know, anybody that's seen us, I mean, I call us that we've been the 4 Musketeers for over 30 years, and forgive me if I cry. They're not tears of, they are a little bit tears of pain, but they're also tears of God's grace. Because we've been together, we worked together, we played together. I mean, after my mother died, it was my brother that they would call him down from 6th grade, because I couldn't stop crying in 1st grade. I'd be missing Mom so much. And they'd say, you're going to have to come down and help your sister. And I'd see this big old guy coming down the hallway, and he'd come and wrap his arms around me, and these would be his words, get a hold of yourself. It's going to be okay.